Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Hello, dear students. Welcome to another lecture. So, in this class, we are going to begin with the 7th chapter of Class 8 Nagaland Board, which is punctuations. Now, we all understand that punctuation mark is the most important thing that is needed in a sentence. When speaking, when writing, unless and until a proper punctuation has been used, the entire sentence is going to go waste. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about the possible punctuation marks, that one needs to know about, how to use them in a sentence. So now look at the sentences first. In order to introduce this topic to you, just look at the sentences given to you. Ranjan, said the mother, you have forgotten to do your homework. Look at the next sentence. Ranjan said, mother, you have forgotten to do your homework. Avantika said, the teacher is very intelligent. Avantika said, the teacher is very intelligent. The first one, Ranjan said, the mother, you have forgotten to do your homework. So the mother said to Ranjan that you have forgotten to do the homework. And in the second sentence, Ranjan said to his mother that you have forgotten to do your homework. Similarly, in the third sentence, Avantika said the teacher is very intelligent. So the teacher said Avantika is very intelligent. And fourth sentence, Avantika said that the teacher is very intelligent. So you see, as I told you, in both these sentences, the group of words are same, but their meanings are different. The omission or the use of punctuation mark may change the meaning of a sentence, and thus punctuation marks are very important in writing. Punctuation is the art of using the proper punctuation marks in the correct places in a composition. So when writing something, where and how to use the correct punctuation marks is something which is very important. Now, these are the most commonly used punctuation marks: a full stop, question mark, inverted commas, also known as quotation marks, a colon, dash, apostrophe, comma, exclamatory mark, a semicolon, parenthesis, also known as brackets in the simplest terms, or a hyphen. So these are the most common punctuation marks, and we shall read about all these punctuation marks and their usage in detail. The first one is a full stop. So a full stop, also known as a period, indicates the longest pause. Where you put a full stop, that means the sentence has come to an end. There is a long pause which is to be given after that sentence. Where do we use full stops? To mark the end of an assertive or imperative sentences. A simple sentence or an imperative sentence will end with a full stop. For example, oceans are full of water. Do a kind deed every day. And also after the abbreviations and the initials. When you write an abbreviation of some initial, then also we use a full stop. Mr. K.C. Sharma. Mr. is the abbreviation for this Mr. So I have put a full stop after Mr. K.C. Sharma. So K.C. is the abbreviated form for Kailash Chandra Sharma. M.A. M.A. is Master of Arts. M.P. M.P. is the Member of Parliament. M.S. is the Railway Mail Service. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. This doctor is the full form of doctor. S. Sarvapalli Radha Krishna. Okay. So we use full stop when an assertive sentence or an imperative sentence comes to an end. And second, when there is an abbreviation, and after that abbreviation, we use a full stop. Full stops are often used in abbreviations, though they are usually omitted in the modern style. So now in the modern English, we have started omitting the full stops in abbreviations. Earlier it was U.S.A and now it is simply USA without the full stops. Okay. The second punctuation mark is a comma, where a full stop or a period was the longest pause. Comma is the shortest pause between the words itself. How do we use and when do we use a comma? To separate a series of words of the same parts of speech. When there is a series of words that you are referring to, you will put a comma in between them. We bought apples, comma, orange, bananas, and grapes. Karthik is handsome, intelligent, and sincere. She speaks easily, clearly, briefly, and eloquently. So when you are separating a group of words, we put comma between them. A comma is generally not placed before a word preceded by and. As, for example, the farmer owned a piece of land, comma, sheep, comma, cattle, and poultry. So before and, we usually do not put a comma, but in modern English, now we have started putting a comma here also. So this is another change that has come. Okay. The second usage of comma is to mark off the name of the person addressed. Mayank, come here. When you are separating the name of the person whom you are talking to. Doctor, comma, the patient is serious. Mother, comma, can I help you? So when you are separating, you put a comma. To mark off nouns, pronouns, and phrases in an opposition. So when you are referring to somebody, Mr. Mathur, who Mr. Mathur, the principal of the school, addressed the students. So this is used to represent the noun, the main subject in the sentence. So when you have to mark off the nouns or the pronouns or the phrases which are given in the apposition, we always separate them with a comma. Before an apposition and after an apposition. Kalidas, the greatest Sanskrit dramatist, was illiterate. What is an apposition for Kalidas? How have we described Kalidas, the greatest Sanskrit dramatist? So we put after the apposition and before the apposition. After a nominative absolute, when weather permitting, we shall go for a picnic. So this is a nominative absolute. The nominative, word has been represented over here. That weather permitting means the weather is giving us the permission that we can go out. But we have written it in a nominative, in a nominative form by simply writing weather permitting. The rain having stopped, we returned home. So we separate such sentences in which we use a nominative absolute with the rest of the sentence by putting a comma. To separate a participle phrase, that the phrase might be expanded to a sentence and is not merely qualifying sentence. If we are talking about a phrase which is used to, expand in the sentence, not just written for the sake of it, but used in an expanded form. For example, determined revenge. This is my phrase and this is an extended phrase. Why? Because it has another clause to the end of it. The boy approached his army. So I'm separating this with the rest of my sentence using a comma. The king, having been defeated by his enemies, returned to his country. The sentence is the king returned to his country. What is my phrase in this sentence? Having defeated by his enemies. So I am separating a phrase with the help of a comma. To separate each pair of words connected by and. If there is a word which is connected by and, there are a lot of pairs of words in a sentence with and, used to connect them. So we are going to separate those words using a comma. High and low, comma. Rich and poor, comma. Wise and foolish. All practiced the tricks of the joker. We should be devout and humble, comma. Cheerful and serene in our lives. Next, before and after the words, phrases, or clauses inserted into the body of a sentence, when there are some phrases or clauses or words which are written into this main sentence, which are inserted into the main sentence. For example, money is, after all, the most important thing nowadays. I could have simply written money is the most important thing nowadays. But I inserted after all and I separated it using a comma. His behavior, to say the least, was extremely objectionable. I could have written his behavior was extremely objectionable. But I have added to say, and since this phrase has been added by me, therefore I separated using a comma. The next use of comma, to separate the date of the month from the date of the year. So date of the month, January 26, 1999. This is something that we all do. To show the omission of a word, especially a verb. If in a sentence you have omitted, you have not used a verb, we are going to use a comma in place of it. I received a shield, semicolon, Kailash, a comma, a verb is missing here. So we have missed out a verb. So when we miss out on a verb, we put a comma. The husband is an Indian. The wife is French. So I could have written is French, but I have not written is, so simply put a comma. The next use of comma, to mark off a direct quotation from the rest of the sentence. When you are writing a sentence in direct speech, then the speech which is written in the double inverted commas, which is written in the direct speech, is separated from the rest of the sentence by using a. She said to us, comma, wait and watch. So this was in the direct speech. I separated it from the subject or the rest of the sentence using a comma. Go then, said the ant, and dance the winter away. Go then, comma, said the ant, comma. Because go then and dance the winter away are direct speech. So I have to separate it from the rest of the sentence using a comma. The next use of comma is, it is used before certain coordinating conjunctions. Certain, not all, certain coordinating conjunctions. To act thus is not wisdom, but sheer foolishness. What is my coordinating conjunction? But. And I have used a comma before but. To separate short coordinate clauses of a compound sentence. When we talk about a compound sentence, we have to separate the coordinating clause with the rest of the sentence. We put a comma. The rains descended and the floods came. She made a third cake, comma, put it in the oven, but it was all burnt. The next use, to separate a subordinate adverb clause, not the coordinating, but the subordinate adverb clause from its principal clause. As the time went on, comma, the wounds healed up. If you have a watch, comma, please tell me the time. So when the adverb clause follows the principal clause, or it is very short or is closely connected with the principal clause, the comma is often omitted. Now we have learned about the principal clause, the adverb clause, everything in our previous lectures. It is all covered. So please, if you still have any doubts with respect to what is a principal clause or an adverb clause, go back to those videos and get your doubts clarified. So if the adverb clause is used immediately after the principal clause and it is very short or is very closely connected with the principal clause, then we can omit the comma. For example, I like her because she's sincere. Rather than putting a comma, I have simply, she's sincere, I have not written because she is an adverb clause. I have not separated it using a comma. She likes you better than me. Again, no comma used anywhere. So these were the uses of comma. Now let us look at the uses of a semicolon. Now what is a semicolon? As you can see in your books, a dot and a comma beneath them. So this is a greater pause than that indicated by a comma. Longest pause was a full stop. Shorter pause was a comma. Semicolon is a greater pause than a comma. Where do we use a semicolon? To separate the coordinating clause if they are joined by conjunctions such as and, but, for, or, either, neither, there, else, otherwise. So if such conjunctions are used in a sentence and you have to separate those clauses, we use a semicolon. I have no education, semicolon. Therefore, I cannot get a job. These were two coordinating clauses separated with the help of a semicolon because therefore is used. Help him now, otherwise he will be ruined. Semicolon because otherwise is used and these are two coordinating clauses. The next use of semicolon is to separate lengthy coordinate clauses where the coordinate conjunction is quoted. If we are talking about those coordinating clauses which are long, but we do not have a coordinating conjunction between them. The rain fell in torrents, semicolon. The sky was dark, the road was deep in mud. The way was long, semicolon. The weary travelers plodded on in the silence. This is a very big sentence which is broken in small parts using coordinating clauses, but there is no coordinating conjunction that we have. So such a sentence will always be separated with the help of a semicolon. The next use, to separate clauses for the sake of just the emphasis. If you wish to give an emphasis on some point, on some clause, we use a semicolon. She wants money to spend, semicolon, friends to talk to, a car to drive about, a nice house to live in. So you simply wish to give some emphasis on in this sentence, and that is why you used a semicolon. So many people, semicolon, so many thoughts. The next use of a semicolon, to separate a series of loosely connected clauses. Those clauses which are loosely connected with each other, we separate them using a semicolon. Now how? Today we love what tomorrow we hate. Today we seek what tomorrow we shun. Today we desire what tomorrow we fear. So we've separated these clauses in the sentence using a semicolon. Reading maketh a full man, speaking a ready man, and writing an exact man. Again, clauses separated with the help of a semicolon. To separate the clauses of a compound sentences when they contain comma, if we are talking about compound sentence, again we have learned about the compound sentences, complex sentences, simple sentences. So when we are separating the clauses of compound sentences, when they contain commas, we can use a semicolon to separate those clauses. He was a kind, large-hearted man, semicolon, and we all honored him. So this clause is separated from my main clause or the principal clause using a semicolon. Okay. The next punctuation is a colon. Now, what is a colon? It shows a shorter pause than a full stop, but a longer pause than a semicolon. So this colon is a shorter pause than a full stop, but a longer pause than a semicolon. When do we use semicolon? First, and the most common use of semicolon is to introduce a quotation or a speech. When you wish to introduce somebody's quotes, somebody's spoken words, we always use this. We all know the proverb, colon, time and tide wait for none. Bacon says, reading makes a full man, writing an exact man, speaking a ready. Next use of a colon. Before some examples, when you are giving some enumerations, when you are enumerating on something or explaining something. For example, some of the important towns of India are, what are the examples of the important towns of India? Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. The Hindustan Times says, Hindustan Times says, 17 killed, 18 arrested during the Gujarat riots. So explanation or example being given, you use a colon. To separate two sentences, when one is used to explain something in connection with the other. There are two sentences in which one sentence is used to explain something in connection with the other. We will use a semicolon. For example, study to acquire a habit of thinking is more important. So, study to acquire a habit of thinking. So, study is more important. Okay, so this is an, connection. The sentences are both connected with each other and thus we separate them using a semicolon. Now, the next example, if you people can see, I can't eat the rice. It is underboiled. Both the sentences are interconnected. Why can't I eat the ice? Because it is underboiled. So when two sentences are connected with each other, we separate them using a colon. And the next use is to separate two contrasted sentences. Earlier example was when we talked about those sentences in which there were, the same. The meaning of the sentence was the same. And here we are talking about those sentences which are contrasting in nature, which are opposite in nature. For example, to err is human, to forgive is divine. First, we are talking about to err, that is to make mistakes. And then we are talking about forgiveness. So these are two opposite sentences. We use a colon to separate them. Man proposes, God disposes. The proposition made by the man and the disposition made by the God is mentioned here. Again, two contrasting features written in the same sentence. So we use a colon. The next is an interrogative sentence, an interrogation. When do we use an interrogation? Now, again, very simple. Instead of a full stop, when you are asking a question from someone, you will always use a question mark. Have you taken the dinner? Who is here? When did they come? Now, the note of interrogation should also be used after a polite request. Will you fetch me a glass of water? Would you mind occupying the next seat for me? Would you mind shutting the door after you leave? So, such is where we use the interrogation. Now, the next is how and where to use the exclamatory mark. So, where do we use the exclamatory mark? After the interjections, exclamatory phrases, or the exclamatory sentences. Interjections such as bravo, hurrah, alas, ouch, terrible, or exclamatory phrases, how wonderful, how lucky, how beautiful, or exclamatory sentences, what a beautiful day it is, what a lovely weather it was. So here we always use exclamation. Okay. Next is the usage of inverted commas. Now, inverted commas, also as quotation marks, are used when you are marking or when you are speaking the exact words of the speaker. The teacher said, hard work is the key to success. These are the exact teacher that you are quoting. And since you are quoting these words, so you put a double inverted comma. I shall give you some wool to make a new dress, said the white lamb to the little girl. So what were the words quoted of the white lamb? I shall give you some wool to make a new dress. So double inverted commas. You must work hard, father said, or you will fail the examination. What were the exact words of the father? You must work hard, or you will fail in the examination. Now, single inverted commas are generally used when a quotation is inserted within a quotation. When do we use single inverted comma? If you look at this, he said to me, what were the words quoted of he? I correctly understood your time once lost is lost forever. There is another quoted word, another quoted sentence in this sentence, which is time once lost is lost forever. So such a sentence we are going to write in single inverted. Okay. Next is a dash. Now where do we use a dash? To resume a scattered subject. If your subject is scattered means rather than just one word, there are multiple words which act as a subject, then your subject is scattered. So we will use a dash to emphasize on our scattered subject. Friends, companions, relatives. My subject, dash, all deserted me. Everybody left me. Okay. The second use of dash is it separates the parts of sentences when a sudden change of thought comes in. When there is a sentence in which there is a sudden change of thought that comes in. If my friends were alive, but why lament the past? You see, here you're hoping that if my friends were alive, and then suddenly the drift in your thought. Why lament? Why to regret over what has been lost? If only he had helped me. You are again hoping. But it does not matter now. A drift in the thought. So, the next one is an apostrophe. When do we use an apostrophe? To show possession, possessive nouns. Shalu's books, girl's frock, boy's school, horse's tail, children's mother. We use the apostrophe. To show the omission of the letter. Omission of the letter, how do we write do not? Word, don't. We have omitted O, so we put an apostrophe. Okay? To indicate the plural of certain figures, words, or signs. Fives, T's, 4 2's. Okay, so this is how we use an apostrophe. The next is the usage of a hyphen. Hyphen is shorter than a dash. Dash is big, hyphen is short. When do we use hyphen? To join two compound words. Compound words, mother-in-law, passer-by, onlooker. Okay. It is also used to form compounds beginning with few prefixes. If we are talking about a few prefix, what is a prefix? Something which is used before a word. So we use a hyphen with some prefixes. What prefixes? Like ex, co, wise, non, self. Like ex principal, cooperate or co-worker, vice president, non-violence, self-control. It is also used to form compound fractions in numbers, 1/3, 2/5, 1/9, and so on and so forth. So these were the 10 punctuation marks and their uses that we studied about. And next thing, which is very important when we talk about punctuation, is the usage of a capital letter. When do we use a capital letter? When you are beginning with a sentence, we always begin with a capital letter. Be honest. We know the secret, dear. It's a planet. Second, to begin each fresh line of poetry. Fresh line means the first line should have a full stop. Only then the next line will be a fresh line, and fresh line will always begin with a capital letter. All the proper nouns and the adjectives which we derive from the proper nouns. Mumbai, America, American, India, Indian, Swiss, Switzerland. So this ways. To write the pronoun I. I is always used or written in with a capital alphabet, and with the interjections, all your interjections will always begin with a capital letter. For the nouns which are referring to God, God is written with a capital G, the Almighty, T and A capital, the Lord, T and L capital, His will, H and B, W capital. When you begin the names of days, months, seasons, title of the places, and particular things, like some public institutions, they also will begin with a capital letter. Tuesday, December, summer, Sinbad and the Sailor, Havra Bridge, St. Helens, life of an Indian farmer, and so on and so forth. When you're beginning with a proverb or a quotation, that proverb or a quotation will begin with a capital letter. Is the best policy. Time lost is lost forever. The next use, to begin with one's titles or degrees. What was the title? Doctor, lieutenant, vice chancellor. They will always begin with a capital letter. To begin the name of important historical events, the French Revolution, the Great War, the Crimean War. They will always begin with capitals. The communities and the political parties, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Christian, the Indian National Congress, Samajwadi Party, Bharatiya Janata Party. Okay? To begin personified objects, when you are referring to an object, as a person, you're personifying an object, that object will begin with a capital letter. Oh, death, save me. Oh, life, what are you? to begin the first word of the speech after inverted commas. When we begin with the inverted commas, the first word will always begin with a capital letter. The teacher said, comma, double inverted commas, tea is grown in Assam and West. But when a speech is continued, the first word does not begin with a capital letter. If that speech continues without a full stop, then the first word will not begin with a capital letter. For example, Shyam, you are late, said the teacher. And it continues. And also, you have not done your homework, so you will be punished. So, this, my dear students, is how we have to work on our punctuation rules. Now, this is a very small and a very easy exercise wherein you have to capitalize the sentence or you have to add whatever necessary punctuations are ready. There are just 5 sentences. I'll just do the first one for you. Parts of Rajasthan are hot, dry, and sandy. So, parts of Rajasthan are hot, dry, and sandy, and full stop. And similarly, you will do for the other sentences as well. And with this, my dear students, we come to the end of this chapter wherein we taught you about all the punctuation marks as well as the use of a capital alphabet. So I hope the topic is clear to you. I shall see you all now in my next lecture.